Hi, welcome back. So let's start where we left off in our earlier section. This is where we will be talking about playing with the data or making charts. So let's now start to look at orders data. So let me pull my orders into here. So as you can see here, we have lot of order information. So what we are trying to do right here is analyze this order information and see what is the way we can look at data. So let's go to sheet. So once you go to sheet, you have lot of information right here. So let's talk quickly about what it is. So rather than me spending different videos on each of them, what I think it would be a good idea for me to talk as we walk through. So this marks section is pretty important because this defines how the data is going to be laid out here. So for example, let's say I want the subcategory sales. So what I need to do, subcategory, whatever I drag onto so this is called my row. So for each unique value of my subcategory, I am going to get one row. So in this case, these are all the different subcategory values. That's the reason I'm getting one row here. So for example, if you see, you can right click here and you can either want one of them or want all of them. So you can basically play with the data right here. You can say keep only, then you get only that. But if you see, once you add that, you got a filter where you say you wanted that. So you can say remove this filter and you're back to all of the individual components. So in order to see the pie graph, let's go back because we have too many values and my pie graph will be cumbersome. Let's see what are the unique values for my category. So in category, I have only 3 values, and let me see the sale value for each of them. So when I drag in the sales, so if you can see the sum of sales for furniture, the sum of sales for furniture was $742,000. So the good thing with show me here is right here, as you can see here, show me based on the data that you have, Tableau using the best industry practices will give you what are the best charts that you can use. So in this case, if you can see, there are two different types of charts that you can use. One is a bar, which we will be talking about in a bit. But for now, we are going to talk about the pie graph. So the moment you click pie graph, the entire stuff is going to change into one single thing. But if you can see here, there are two different ideas that we are trying to do here. So if you see the color conventions that we have, furniture, when you go over it, you see, okay, furniture was 742, which we did earlier. Office, but if you see, you cannot really talk, just looking at the graph, you cannot really say anything about which category it is. So where do we see the category? Right here. If you see, this is where we are seeing the category. How do I know that the coloring is based on them? So if you see here, the color is based on my category. If you see, if you can say click the small right arrow right there, you can basically see lot of options for each of those. For in Tableau, for each setting, there is this drop down where you can always use it as a place where you can format and have lot of options. So the reason why you are seeing this as a pie is the sale is what is defining how much angle. So this is an angle. So how much angle it is defined by sum of sales. But what is this sum of sale? This is a total sum of sale which is being divided, and this is the angle in which it is getting divided. So for us to understand what each of these, just by looking at the graph, is I'm going to drag my category into my label section right there. So the moment I drag it and leave it there, as you can see, what has happened is it moved out of the color category. So now everything is colored the same. So that's what you do not want to do, because though technically you have 3 different categories here, because when you go and see, you have 3 different categories, but all of them are having the exact same color, so you cannot really differentiate it. So I'm now going to revert back the change I did. So now what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to add a label where I have my category. So I take the category from here and drag it and leave it onto my label. So the moment you do that, now label is being used in two different categories. Please observe this. You are using this in the color, and also you are using this in the label. So the label will basically show anything that you have here. So for example, I want to show along with the category, I want to show the name of the or the sales of the category. So what I do, I take my sale, I drag it onto the label and leave it right there. So now if you can see, whatever you have ABC, you can basically correlate this one ABC 123 to this one, saying, hey, this is what I'm doing. And the size of each of this pie is the sum of sale. And the angle is what is defining this. So if you can see right here, this is interesting. So you kind of at a high level get a view of how much we are doing, but as you can see, you're not like really very great at pursuing it. So let's try to add region to this mix, right? So double click on the region, and then it says, okay, by each category, each region I have, like as we saw earlier in the data, by each region we have central, east, south, and west. It basically plots four different graphs. And how do I know that how many points it has marked? If you can see here, it is 12 marks, which means there are 12 points that is pointed. So because there are 4 multiplied by 3 in each, it is 12. So if you can see, right now you can see that, central, east, south and west are kind of divided, but you cannot really see what is going on with the angles. For example, if you can see, is this angle better than this angle? You cannot really tell that at this point, because the graph we are using, pie graph, is not really optimistic, or is not the best thing for us to use in this one. So rather than that, let's look at other options that Tableau says. The other options that we have is a bar graph. So why don't we go and click on my bar graph and see what happens. So the moment I click on my bar graph, there are interesting things that are happening. So what is happening is, by category, it is basically dividing my furniture by category. So if you quickly click here and do a sort on the sale, what basically happens is, in each category we are going to, let me click on my show me to hide that. To in each category we are going to basically sort the data, and we know which is the best for performing one in each category. So for example, in furniture, west is performing way better than east, and the worst performing is south. So that's what we are trying to do, and this is how bar graph, just by looking at it, can tell us. So now let's add a bit of mix into this, where we say we want to have the sales in my label. So let me leave there. So I have some sale value in there. Okay. And also let me add some profit coloring. So we will talk a bit more about coloring as we go on, but let's start adding more data visualizations to whatever we have. So let me add my color, profit to my color. So the moment I say that, this is where it becomes really interesting for me. So if you look at it, let me sort it again just to make sure. So if you look at it again, this section, though we are making more sale in furniture category, in central we are actually losing money. So this is where things get very interesting. Just by looking at this single graph, anyone will be in a position for us to tell that, hey, central is really doing bad, because we are losing money in that. So now this is what bar graph is. So the reason why we are able to do this is because we can look at the height, or we can look at the width of different graphs and easily. So our eyes are very perspective to looking at the width and height of stuff. So this is very interesting. So this is a graph that is talking to me about, at a category level, which one is performing better. So now let me add one more. So we kind of got a good thing here. Now let me add a new sheet. I'm going here and I'm clicking this. So once I add a new sheet, I'm kind of, this time here what we did was, the driver for us was the furniture, and then we were looking at the region in each furniture category. So now let's do it the opposite way and see what happens. So I want the region, okay, and then I am trying to add my category, and then what I'm trying to add is my sales. So once I do that and I go and show me, click on show me, and I'm trying to do the exact same stuff graph, but this time I'm trying to do it in a side by side bar graph. So right now if you look at the data, this is where it becomes really interesting. And let me add the label as my region. Okay, so this is my furniture, this is my office supply. Oh sorry, I think I added the wrong one. So because I wanted the region but I got the category, so let me remove the category from here, and let me add my sale to my label. So right now if you look at it, just by looking at this one, which is pretty interesting, I have 4 different colors, each of them telling me what is a total what is the total value of the sale in furniture in furniture in my central, in my east, in my south, and in my west. So just by looking at this, you can easily tell how how much sale you made from looking at the video. So now let's do couple of things. Right now we are doing the category and then we are doing region. So what happens if I basically swap this or remove so now I have the region where I say in each region I can at this point tell you which region is the best performing one, just because the height, because just by looking at the height you can easily talk about it. And or you can even click on this and you can see what are the different options that you get right here. So in this case we can say remove it for us to remove, and we will talk about each of this in detail as we go through. We will talk about filtering, we'll talk about how to what do we mean by show filtering. The reason I wanted to drop you down is here you want to click on format and see what are the different options. So for example, the number right now is in 1 2 3 4 5 6 format. We can change this to whatever standard format we have, where we can say if you want to have a standard number, you can do that. If you want to have a decimal, you can do that. In my case, I don't want any decimals, so you can even go for Unix. For in this units, in this case I am looking more like thousands. So when at the moment I click 1000 and I say okay, so data, if you look at it, it's still kind of 678.78. I'm not really interested in the decimals, so I'm going to go here, I'm going to say 0 decimals, and I'm going to basically say okay. So at a high level, this kind of is giving me that 725K in the West is one of the best performing stuff in there. So it's basically looking at the same data. So how do I go back? You can either click this one, the right arrow there, and go back, and then you can add a category region. Now what happens is in one region, like in central, we are now comparing furniture versus office supplies versus technology. So what we are trying to do here is in one region we are trying to compare stuff. So let me add you one more. Let me quickly add another sheet and look at the bar graphs again. So in this case, we are first going to look at category, then we are going to look at by region. So we add more and more dimensions. If you can see here right now, and I'm going to add, let's say, the sale value. All I'm doing is double clicking stuff. So right now, if I look at this and I go for my graph, in this case, for each furniture, for each category, I'm trying to see how I did in each region. Versus in my earlier picture, what I did was in each region, I was trying to compare how am I doing in the sale. So these are totally two different perspectives of the data. So this is what I mean by data visual analytics. You need to know how the user is going to identify the data or how he is going to analyze it. So for example, let's see, go to our sheet 3 that we just developed and look at furniture. And now what I'm trying to look at here from here perspective is I'm trying to do some trend analysis. Bar graphs are definitely not really great for trend analysis because they do not talk to me about year over year changes, or if in this case we are talking about the total changes, total sales that we had in the last few years. So let me add a new graph or a new worksheet, and because we want the data to be over a long period of time, this is where I'm going to use my dates. So let me add my order date to my rows. So I have 4 years of data in this case. So I have some data, like if you can see the plus sign, that is what we call the hierarchies, which we will talk about. Basically what it means is you can do a lot of drill down reports. And let me add my sale. So when I add both of these, this is interesting. In 2011, we had 480. 2012, we actually lost some. Then we gained back in 13, and we are doing pretty good between 12, 13, and 14. So that is pretty interesting. Now let me drill down to the quarter level. The moment you click that, you can drill things down to a quarter level. So this is where things get real interesting. And let's say I click on my line graph, which is continuous. So if you see, let me click on show me. If you see, this line graph talks to me that over a period of time between 2011 and 2014, it talks to me about how sales moved across my company. So you can see here that it has been moving across pretty well. We had some really great quarters. We had some really, like 2013 Q4 was good. 2012 Q4 was good. 2011 Q4 was good, which technically is telling me that Q4s are really good. So now let me try to break this and try to see if I can get data at a quarter level and sum of sales. So what I'm trying to do here is I want different colors for quarters. So there are 4 quarters. So what am I going to do? I want different colors. So I'm going to say the color is going to be my order date. And if you can see, there are 4 different graphs in this case. But I don't want it by the year. If you see here, the color is by the year. I'm going to say, okay, it's not by the year, but let's put it by the quarter. So now what is happening is when you do it by the quarter, you are just having points in your mark sheet. This is called the worksheet or the mark sheet. This is where the reason, if you drill it down, you are going to have more and more points where you're going, because we don't really have the data that is for us to point it. So as in when you drill down the data elements are going to be very consistent. So this is type of bar graph where you can see in Q1 you had some of the outliers. So most of the time if you look at it, your average sale is, let's say, about 8,000. So you have all of this data that we have which are way above our average sales. So these are times, if you look at it, in which quarters you're getting most of these are in the Q4s. So what we are trying to do here is in the sum of sale, we are trying to do continuous, and in the quarter we want it at a level of quarter. So we will talk about the dates in detail. So what in later section, but in about the dates. But what I'm trying to do here is right now what is happening is the reason you are seeing all of these as discrete values 2011 Q1. So in this case it is this is the reason why you are seeing this. But my point of view here is just to look at the data at a quarter level. That's the reason I'm going from quarter where I have the year concatenated to it to just the quarter where I'm going to just click on quarter. So the moment I click on quarter, and if you see what is happening here is I'm having each point, because I have only 4 quarters. So now I'm drilling down back up to the month and back up to the quarter. So right now if you look at it, you can see that Q4 is always one of the best performing quarters. This is where things get real interesting. So if I now add my category to the mix, so let me add my category to the mix, and now you can clearly see that in 2014, so it's kind of confusing. So let me add my year to my label. So where is my order date? Clicking on that, clicking on my label. And so if you see, the reason why it has broken that so badly is my label is at a month level. I am not really interested in at a month level. Rather, I am interested in at a quarter level. So I think let me go back to my order date and sorry, let me drag it over to my label. I need to drag it over to my label, because the moment I drag it over to my label, what is happening is I have month. Let me click on my month. I don't want month. I want it by the year, because I want to show it by the year. So the moment I click on the year, now you can see that 2014, 2013, and so just by looking at this, you can tell me that in 2014, all the categories have been really performing well. They have been performing well over the last year. So this is what I mean by having different graphs for the different purposes. So to be simple and straight, when you are having any trend analysis, your line graphs are the best, like in this case. Whenever you are trying to compare data one against the other, your bar graphs are best. You need to define what is the level of detail here. As you can see, we had category and region, whereas in the other case we had region and category, and both of them were totally different. And finally, you can do pie graphs whenever you want the overall percentages. So that's all with the graph. I will come back later where we will be talking more in detail about the other graphs that we have.